All right, we now welcome on co-owner of the newest baseball team in North Carolina, the Carolina Disco Turkeys co-owner, Greg Sullivan. Greg, how we doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. So let's start this off with the obvious. How on earth did y'all come up with disco turkeys?
Yeah, well, we knew we wanted to do something fun, something that kids would like, something that, adults, people young at heart, maybe is a good way to put it, would like. Um, and we wanted to do something a little bit outside the box. The other team in our city, the Dash, are very popular, but, I think if there's another team, you want to do something a little bit different just to, kind of where people remember you too. So that was part of it. And Winston-Salem, is a city that's kind of cool enough and quirky enough where they could get behind a little bit of an outside the box name, a little bit of an unusual name. So I think it kind of works. Um, you know, the response has been pretty strong as far as people seem to like the name. Um, so you never know when you announce it how that's going to go.
So what were the other names that were left off?
I mean, we pretty much knew from the beginning this is what we
Mhm.
wanted to do. I don't think it would work in every town around here, but I think it works well here. We really like that. It's fun. It's kind of like another name for peacocks. So like, people figure that out and they enjoy that. And then there's also still the idea of music and stuff like that behind it. So it's not like a joke that wears off after you hear it one time because you can still incorporate music into the games and the
Mhm.
vibe of the team. So there's a lot to work with. But yeah, there weren't really like backup options or anything like that. We were pretty set and going that way from the start.
Who created y'all's logo? Because you got to give them credit because it is amazing.
Yeah, he did a great job. Our illustrator is Britton Peck. He's another North Carolina connection. He lives in Durham. That was important to us. So when I had the name in mind. Our group, we were all on board with it. Once I brought it to him, and then I knew I wanted to get someone who could do a great job because you don't want to. Once you have a name like that, you want to knock it out of the park. So I looked around and kind of thought, who could really give this all the dimensions it needs to be successful. And one place I looked was, you may have heard of MLB Raleigh.
Mhm.
And it's a grassroots effort to get Major League Baseball to Raleigh. But one thing they did interesting was they brought a lot of illustrators in with North Carolina ties to come up with different concepts. So I was able to look at what a lot of these different really skilled designers have come up with to see if they could like not just create a logo but capture a whole identity of a team. Um, and Britain's he did something that was kind of based on barbecue and hogs, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do with our team, but I saw that he had a lot of vision and creativity, and I'm like, I bet this guy's kind of local, or at least he's in the state. He's clearly skilled, and I'm like, I think he's got the ability to wrap his head around this idea, and it turns out it worked really well. So we're really happy with what Britain was able to do, and we worked together, man, and kind of shot things back and forth for a few months. And once it started really coming together, it was hard to keep it a secret. Um, but we did, and it was awesome for both him and I and the rest of our group here to see people react to it the first time.
So what made y'all want to start this team up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start with me. I was a sports writer before doing this for a long time. So I covered minor league baseball, the Nashville Sounds for the Tennessean newspaper out there in Tennessee, and had experience from sports writing of going to about 100 games a year between minor league ball, Vanderbilt University, local high schools, and stuff like that. I did come across there was a team out there about 10 years ago called the Nashville Outlaws. They're in the Prospect League, which is a pretty good league that's still around. The team's not still around, but you know, I saw some people trying this out. It was a little bit of a tough time and tough market. I think that was still during the recession, so
Mhm.
there was a lot of factors of why that didn't last for several years. Um, but I think I saw, how if this is done well, people will, a community can rally behind the team still, just like they do with the minor league team. Um, so I saw that. I've been starting with that. I've been kind of watching summer collegiate baseball around the country. Often, on like YouTube channels or Facebook Live, but I've been really inspired the last few years just watching, some of those teams, even on the West Coast, who do a great job with game atmosphere and that kind of thing. So I was pretty hooked, and have been kind of always looking for the right opportunity. I really needed a partner to really get it off the ground, so we
Mhm.
were in good shape. And my business partner, Joe Mackey, he went to college in Wisconsin, and they don't have a college baseball team at Wisconsin, but unfortunately, but they do have a really good summer collegiate team, the Madison Mallards. So he kind of, growing up there, has been around summer college ball, and up there it's kind of the same thing as minor league baseball because the weather window is so short that
Mhm.
a lot of those cities, even though they're big enough to support minor league baseball, they really can't, because no one's going to come out to games on the Great Lakes in April or September. Uh, but they love going out in June and July. So,
Mhm.
so there are a lot of like short season teams up there and college summer collegiate teams. Um, so he was kind of easy to convert, and from there it was pretty easy to get going.
So if you're in the Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point area, excuse me, you have 4 different baseball teams right next to you within 20 to 30 minutes. What makes someone wanna come to y'all's games?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know personally I go to a few dash games a year just as a consumer. It's a mile and a half from my house. They have a good atmosphere, so I'll take my daughter and my wife will come, and we'll go sit out there, eat a hot dog or eat a hamburger, watch some baseball. And I usually, because they're not playing every weekend, we'll go to a game or two in High Point, go to a game or two in Greensboro. Not everybody's that hardcore, but I think
Mhm.
a lot of people in North Carolina are. And I think partly because of that, we know that a certain number of people um, are going to go to games when we're playing because no one else in Winston-Salem is playing. And especially now, with the downtown areas around, some of these downtown ballparks, Winston-Salem has a lot more housing right around the stadium, people that could potentially walk to your game.
Mhm.
So I think it's the dynamic shifted a little bit, and so there'll be people looking to do something safe, and fun outdoors when the Dash aren't playing, and so we're right there, have that high quality facility, true stadium, and can put on a show that whether it be families or just like people that are like 25 and live in a downtown condo or something want to come by and do. And a lot of our games are also a little bit on the earlier side too. We play a lot of these like 5:30, 6 o'clock type games. So I think it'll also function as like, a happy hour opportunity for people in their 20s and 30s and older as well to come out and do.
That's a great thing because some of those dash games that start at 7, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not the biggest baseball fan, but I don't wanna sit at a minor league game until 11 o'clock if it goes into extra innings.
Yeah, and it's good to have those options. I think, we have a couple games right now, the way the schedule's looking, where they'll be a little bit later,
Mhm.
early in the season because there's like all these. They try to do a good job of helping out the city, and they're hosting some high school graduations. It looks like. So because of that, we're playing a couple games that are later, and I think
Mhm.
that's cool because the players are like, okay, we can play under the lights. It'll feel like we're a major league team. Playing at 8 o'clock or whatever that ends up being. But yeah, most of our games are earlier, so I think that's good for the Dash and it's good for us because it's like, well, we're giving Winston Salem some options if they're people who tend to get started with their day at 7 because they work 9 to 5, but they live like further away. probably a dash game's a better option for you,
Mhm.
but if you like work downtown and you don't want to stay out later, then we might be a good option because our games start not too long after they get off of work. So I think the reason our like collaboration can work really well is because we're just really offering the city more options to get outside, especially this year where we have some other cool sports in our town, but some of them might be a little more challenged with COVID. So I think
Mhm.
being outside, having weekends, basically every weekend in June and July, one of us is playing outside and at Truist Stadium. So it's cool for the town, I think.
Yeah, so how have the COVID regulations been with this?
Um, the Dash, I think, have done more of a lot of those conversations with the city. The
Mhm.
way our collaboration works is they're a little, I guess, more involved on the food and beverage and the ticket, social distancing side of things that even in our games,
Mhm.
which was perfectly fine with us because you know they know their stadium extremely well. They've got a lot of professional people that have kind of built those relationships with the city and kind of know how to make everything work for the public, which and that also helps us focus on bringing a good game experience as a new organization as well, because unlike them we have to be focused on recruiting players, also just kind of figuring out what every new team has to figure out, which is like what kind of music are you going to play, what kind of uniforms are you going to have, what kind of these kind of things, like getting umpires, all that kind of stuff. So um, we're doing really well, but having that relationship with the Dash kind of helps everything be manageable. But also, I think, yeah, especially during COVID, it's a huge advantage because I think that way the public, because they know the Dash have a great reputation of just being really professional on how they manage things. I think it
Mhm.
gives them more confidence when they are thinking about coming to our game too.
So, with the tickets and whatever, is it 50% crowds, 30% crowds? What are you looking at for COVID?
Yeah, I mean, since our first home games aren't going to be until June, so I think we just kind of monitor it and see where we're at. Obviously we have to follow whatever the city and state tell us to do. Um, right now, the last I checked, the restriction was 50%, which is a pretty good crowd at a stadium like that.
Mhm.
But right now it's 6 foot um, distancing between like groups. So even though it's 50%, I think the number would functionally be a little bit less than that. And we'll just kind of see what those like social distancing requirements and capacity requirements are, as we get a little bit closer. But I think if we played in like a high school facility, if you're dealing with 50%, it would be hard to like be able to pay the bills.
Mhm.
So I think when you're playing in a venue that you can bring in thousands of people, um, even if your restrictions 30, 40, 50%, you can still bring enough people where it feels like a sporting event, and there's people there without and do it safely, but also bring some people in and everyone have fun and buy some hot dogs and beer if they're old enough and that kind of thing.
So, I read on y'all's website you're trying to do sponsorships differently. How is that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just think we're being a little bit like kind of just reading the tea leaves some, and just we know. Uh, I think we're just kind of people that like to work locally anyway. So I
Mhm.
think one thing is we're like focusing more on like medium-sized local businesses that probably have thought about sponsoring bigger events,
Mhm.
maybe have never done something where they've had their logo on a video board at a minor league baseball game. So, I think we could be a good entry point into that for some of them. We don't play quite as many games as like the Dash or the Greensboro Grasshoppers and teams like that. So, it could be something where a company that's been kind of, on the fringe of trying something like that could try it out. But I think also with baseball, COVID will present some challenges to this, but I think people also like creative promotions. So if someone wants to sponsor like a race on the field or something fun like that. I think, usually that's a conversation where, the team and the marketing department from, whoever they're working with can talk that out. But yeah, I even think, this year, we're even looking at like local businesses that aren't even particularly that big.
Mhm.
I think, there's just a lot of these like buy local type movements. And I think Winston-Salem, it's a city that's like has a lot of character to it. It's been around a while. It's a little artistic, a lot of breweries and fun stuff going on. And it's not really like maybe it was 20, 30 years ago where there's more like corporate chain restaurants and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
so I think our team kind of sees itself the same way. So I think we can be a good like cultural fit for some of these businesses. Um, but yeah, I think everyone's got to try their own approach, and also some of the logic here is just kind of finding our own niche within what we can offer versus what others can offer in the city and around here.
So, we talked about this before we started, but when do games start and how can people watch them?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we start the season with a handful of road games in late May. I think around May 24th is when we're looking at. So we're just kind of working with some scheduling partners on verifying times and stuff like that. And we should be releasing all that shortly. And our first home game is that weekend of like June 4th, 5th. We're same deal with that, but that's looking like where we're starting. I think I mentioned, we have a couple later starts because the Dash are kind of being good citizens and hosting some high school graduations. But I think our players will like opening up, hopefully on maybe 8 p.m. or something under the lights on that first weekend of June. So we're excited about that, and excited to be selling tickets soon and stuff like that. We'll have some season tickets and game day options as well. We'll have some advanced ticket options. Partly, a team like us might not do that normally, but with COVID, we wanted to give people the option to buy in advance, just to kind of help with moving people in and out. Um, and as far as watching, yeah, I guess I don't know if this is what you meant, but as a summer ball team, we try to recruit locally as much as we can, um, but we will probably have a few players from outside the area, and then even some of the locals will have family from outside the area. So we do plan on streaming games. It won't necessarily be like like watching a Braves game on TV, but
Mhm.
it'll be something. So like if you've got family out of town, you want to play for our team, you have an option to keep up with them where you can watch them play, or their coaches can watch them play. So it's very important for like long-term recruiting to show that you're willing to invest in at least some minimal streaming options, whether
Mhm.
that's Facebook Live or YouTube or something like that.
So, where can people buy this amazing merch?
Yeah. So we have what's called our Foul Territory Team Store. So
Excellent name.
thank you. Yeah, during the season, we'll be set up down on the side of probably the first baseline, I guess. And then the Dash are actually also planning to sell some at their games as well inside their team store. And yeah, we have if you go to our site, discoturkeys.com, you can find a link to our Foul Territory team store online as well. Some of those items right now are on pre-order. We had a bunch of things in stock when we launched the team, kind of just in case there was a lot of demand, and we sold and we had a few hundred things, which is cool, but just like t-shirts. And they quickly sold out. I think 23 hours was what it was. So um, we put some other things on pre-order and sold a few hundred more really quickly. And quickly, just for everyone's sanity, we got some partners to start helping us with shipping and stuff. So we found a local company, Machine Gun Graphics, downtown. It's just kind of cool how this all worked out. And they were printing our stuff anyway, so they're like, they're not just kind of like cheap shirts that some teams do. to kind of make the biggest profit possible, we wanted to get like decent quality shirts. So like people will wear our shirt around town several times instead of just once to help
Mhm.
with our branding, but also just, because a lot of people like those shirts. So we went with like a really good printer, kind of like a punk rock type printer, um, on like decent quality shirts. And they're doing fulfillment for us. We're setting it up. So we've had a lot of Canadian interest for some reason, which is cool. So our Canadian friends will start being able to get international shipping because that was a little tough for us to do. And a few people from the UK have been reaching out, so we can help them out too. But the other cool thing about them is like, if we need to pick up some extra merch to take to the stadium, they're right next to the ballpark, so they're
Mhm.
a downtown business as well. So I think you mentioned sponsorships. I think we're really trying to hook in with the downtown business community a lot. So
Mhm.
this is an example of that. It's not them sponsoring us; it's more just the partnership. But I think downtown businesses in Winston and a lot of other places, there's like a family there. So trying to get a deeper emotional connection with the business community and just the community at large is a goal, along with just getting name recognition and a good reputation in town.
Well, Greg, thank you for your time. Everybody, go buy as much merch as possible on the discoturkeys.com and get your tickets come June 4th, 5th, weekendish.
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. It was fun.